Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our new episode of Love All. I'm looking out of my window and the sun is shining. We had a pretty heavy snowstorm and we've been shoveling and trying to clear the paths and the roads and everything. But we're back and the snow is starting to melt. So, Blair, sure you guys didn't have any snow in Texas, right?
We did not this time around.
Okay.
We had snow while I was enjoying Australian summer, but as of today, I think a high of 75. So no snow in sight for us. But gosh, Kim, what a few days it's been for you. I feel like you've had quite a weekend, then quite a Monday.
My Sunday was, I think, where it all went wrong. I wanted to take my son to like a car wash where you do it all yourself. Ended up losing my credit card, lost my phone somewhere, or he lost my phone, was playing a game on there to try and keep him like busy. And my battery died. He must have put it down somewhere. And so I've been without a phone and a blocked credit card for a few days. But once we finish this episode, I'm going to go and maybe do a little tour, drive around and see if I can find a little Bank of America credit card laying around somewhere. And look for my phone. It's been nice to have, no phone on me for a little bit. But at the same time, it's time to try and find one or at least get a new one.
Well, Kim, little do you know that when you find said phone, you're going to have like 27 minutes worth of voice notes from me because I just kept voice noting you. You were not responding. And I was like,
sorry.
I didn't know until late on Monday night that Kim was without her phone. Anyway, I mean, it will be such a gift to you when you finally locate the phone to listen to the minutes and minutes
or not.
that I've sent you. But you also had some other good news to report.
Right. My husband, he's a basketball coach at Christian Brothers Academy, CBA, and they won the Shore Conference tournament. So they won on Friday night. They beat Red Bank, and they beat them pretty easily. So that was really nice. The guys were really like ready from the start, and ended up winning the trophy. So in about next week, they're starting the state championships. So that's another busy few weeks coming up for them.
Well, congrats to them. I too witnessed my child, well, not husband out there competing, but my child competing this weekend. My daughter played a local UTR tennis tournament, and man, it is just always a wild ride.
I can only imagine.
I can't remember. Did I talk about what Lisa Shelton, Ben's mom, said to me last week? I don't know that I did. I think we talked about it, but I asked her in Dallas, I said, Lisa, are you as calm as you look on the sidelines? And she said, what is there to not be calm about? Which is a fair point. She's like, he's out there doing his job, living his dream, getting the chance to compete in front of people. This is all sort of icing and gravy. And I was like, that's a really great point. But then she added, she's like, honestly, the tough part was junior tennis. Junior tennis was savage. And I'm like, yes, that is a fact. And my daughter's only 10. But even there where there are line calls, and I still run into, even parents of my girls' friends whose kids are in other sports, and they cannot believe that 9, 10, 11-year-olds are out there calling their own lines. But that's the reality of it. So it is just a wild ride, and will continue to be. I will come to you for moral support.
Good. Well, congrats.
Yeah,
to her. That's exciting.
She had fun, which is the goal for sure.
Right.
And speaking of fun today, Kim, I'm excited for our episode. We're going to start off with Henley's headlines, and then we're going to go into a segment that Kim is not so thrilled that I am calling Kimformation, where Kim is going to break down some X's and O's for us of some of the players who have been performing well on court recently. So should we start with Henley's headlines?
Yes, please. Let's go.
All right. Well, the first one, Kim, is a doozy. I am going to do my best to explain this in as few words as possible. If you just heard me explain that I left Kim 27 minutes of voice notes, you might be doubting my abilities right now, but I'm going to do my best. All right, so we're going to start off with Tara Moore, 33 years old, a tennis player from Great Britain. She's been ranked as high as 145 in singles, 77 in doubles. She is suing the WTA for $20 million, saying that they failed to protect her from the dangers of contaminated meat in some locations throughout the world, specifically in her case, South America. So I'm going to give you a quick timeline, Kim, and then we can weigh in. So back in the spring of 2022, Tara Moore tested positive for 2 anabolic steroids, boldenone and nandrolone. By December of 2023, she was cleared of fault and negligence in an independent tribunal. Then the ITIA, the governing body in charge of the tennis anti-doping program, appealed that decision to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, or CAS. You've probably heard that if you're listening to this. And they upheld the appeal and suspended Moore for 4 years. And that judgment, that ruling, was given last July. So here we are today. Moore is suing the WTA, saying that they failed to protect her. Now, we can talk about the amount she's suing them for and everything that led up to this, but is it coincidence that this week we also became aware that Acapulco, the ATP event that's happening this week, has actually banned the presence of red meat from their tournament? I don't think so. So you see on the WTA side, and I believe Los Cabos has also done that in the past, where they have said, we're just taking meat off the table, no pun intended, to protect players from the potential presence of banned substances. So your takeaways, Kim, there's a lot to unpack here.
There is. And it's obviously for Tara Moore, it's a very disappointing situation to be a part of, right? And one of the things that I did find online when I was trying to get my timeline, because I felt like it was handled, it was taken care of. And then, I do think, or the ITIA, they based their conclusion or their decision on the fact that they said that the levels were too high to be contaminated through meat.
Right. Specifically of the nandrolone. Exactly. Yep.
If she is innocent, then how hard is it to test the meat? And how hard is it to go for check how much that has an impact on the body? And it's just a very frustrating situation. And the fact that she's suing the WTA, I don't know, did she try to sue the tournament? Was that, or, was that not a way to go about things? And is there a better, maybe a better option to try to sue is it also the ITIA that she's suing, right? And the WTA, or?
I think it's just the WTA, okay. I believe.
But it's it's such a very, very unfortunate and disappointing situation for every party. I know that the WTA, they try their absolute best when it comes to providing, making sure that all the tournaments and the tournament directors are aware of the risks and of the catering services that work for the tournaments. And I know that they're very, very involved in making sure what's important for the players, what's healthy, what should be available and whatnot. But yeah, when it comes to the quality of certain meats, and we've seen it before where, players get sick and whether it was from, vegetables that weren't washed, salad, we've heard it over and over again that, few players get sick. And I don't think there's a lot that the WTA can do about those kind of things, but we'll see how this turns out. And, I just feel bad for Tara, if it is, because of that contaminated meat, it is a very, very sad situation. And that she gets punished for it is, just very, very unfortunate. And I hope, she can get something back from it. Will it be 20 million? I don't think so. But I remember a few years ago, I forget what year it was. Was it where Ginny Bouchard slipped in the US Open locker room and 2015 and ended up, suing the USDA and I guess they settled. There is definitely, abilities to go about that and make these kind of injuries or these situations maybe feel a little bit better afterwards. But Jeannie is doing well again, and she's playing good on the pickleball tour and doing well and making finals there in the singles. So happy to see that she's has this new career outside of tennis.
Yeah, it's an interesting question just in terms of what the WTA should be doing to protect players. And has this become such a common occurrence that, okay, all South American or Central American tournaments are going to start saying, to be safe, we are just not going to have meat on the table, which again is an unintentional pun, but you do wonder if this is going to be a domino effect where a couple of events on the ATP tour are doing it. I don't know if the WTA has done this. I would love to do some research. I will report back. But if they haven't, will they consider doing it in the future? Because just last week, there were 3 players on the ATP tour who were cleared from fault or negligence. They tested positive for boldenone and blamed it on contaminated meat, and all 3 of them were cleared. So I do think the fact that CAS, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, said, we agree with the ITIA that the amount of nandrolone in her system could not be explained by contaminated meat. You do wonder how much that is going to play into the outcome of this case.
Right. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll keep following this situation and see what will, and if we hear things on the WTA tour and behind the scenes, we can report on our weekly Lovell podcast. But it's it'll be interesting, very interesting to see where this will go and what measurements the WTA will take.
All right, the next Henley's headline comes from Coco Gauff. And again, this was last week, and it was something that she said on court during her semifinal loss to Alina Svitolina. That was an incredible match. If you haven't seen it, go check out the highlights. But she looked over in the direction of her camp and she said, quote, "I've been doing everything you wanted for the last 6 months." And this was presumably directed at Gavin McMillan, her biomechanics coach, and her coach in general, who has obviously tried to make adjustments on the serve. And as Gil Gross so deftly broke down on his YouTube channel, he was explaining the fact that in the last 52 weeks, Coco has the highest double fault rate on the WTA Tour at 10%. To give that context, Yelena Ostapenko is next at 8%. And so that's, again, 1 out of every 10 serves is a double fault. And she is still managing to play incredibly high-level tennis. But gosh, you can just feel the frustration.
In our first episode, we had Ons Jabeur on, and she talked about, like, why is everybody talking about her serve and how she has a good serve? And that's the thing that I think people and the media and commentators at times too, like, there's so much focus on her serve right now that when she serves a double fault, everybody it jumps on it right away. And I think for her mentally, you can only kind of avoid it so much, right? That it is being looked at as a weakness, and it is at times, but she at times serves really good as well. And I think that's where, I'm very intrigued about the fact that why at times she, the double faults kind of build up. And a lot of times, if you hit a double fault when it's 15-all, 2-all in the first set, there's really no meaning. Like, there's no impact behind that. But if it happens at 4-all in the third, if it on break point down, or, on these important moments where there is added pressure. And I think Brad Gilbert, who worked with her, explained that in an interview when he sat down. I think it was on ESPN or something. He was in the broadcast studio, and he says, like, listen, we go out on court after a bad serving match, literally from the court to the practice court, and she won't miss a second serve. She'll hit every second serve. So a lot of times it's also, your mind, okay, there's that pressure of the score and everything, but also to be ready for the next shot, to be ready for the return. And I dealt with that a little bit, where it's not that I was hitting double faults, but I just was not getting the pace on my second serve that I had to have when I was playing somebody like Lindsay Davenport or Serena or Venus, Sharapova, like the hard hitters, because they will punish it right away. And so I would serve, but in my motion, I would already kind of retrieve a little bit. and kind of collapse my chest down or pull my left arm down too soon. And I think at times that's what's happening with Coco a little bit as well. And it just, there's a few things to me. It's like the mental side of it, right? Where the focus and you start to doubt, your shot more and more, and it becomes an obsession to try and fix it. But a lot of times working too hard on it can also kind of get into, the negative spiral and become an obsession in a way.
Yeah, one last note from me on this topic. I remember talking to Coco Gauff in press at the WTA finals last fall after a match that she won, but I think was well into the double digits in terms of double faults. And she was saying, I just kept going for more and more. And I said, what does that say about your personality, Coco, that you are struggling to get your serve in, and yet you are going for more and more. You are hitting it harder. You are going for more rotation. And she said, I guess I just feel like I always want to go big or go home. And I thought that was really telling, but also it makes you wonder, could she potentially shift that mentality for a match and just go for the serve that she knows she can get in just to build the confidence? It just made my wheels turn in terms of that's probably why she's as good as she is, because she has the go big or go home mentality. But also, are there points where you need to maybe shift that?
Yeah, I think there is. To really practice my kick serve, I remember my coach, Carl, throughout my career, when I wasn't feeling it, sometimes you just don't really feel, or the toss is off a little bit. He used to sit me on a little chair on the service line, and I literally had to do 50 kick serves where I wasn't moving. You take a lot, like the service motion is, the most complicated shot in our sport. And when you can take away some of the, the early steps, right, of the motion and just worry about kicking, like just the arm motion, forget about what's happening with your feet. Your brain kind of absorbs it and stores it. And it's made me, it made me just more confident putting in that kick serve and having the variety. And that's the thing that I think for Coco, it's going to take time. And it's all about like the communication that she has. Okay, we saw her get frustrated, which is totally fine, and I get the frustration, the disappointment in herself in the serve. I totally get it, but it's going to take time, and I think she's going to just keep having to put the time into it and the hours and a lot of times when it is that mental side of it, that is something that you can't practice, right? You can't say like, oh, let me get that feeling of, being a little bit tighter in my arm or worried about my next shot. You don't create that same kind of feeling and pressure in practice. And so she's, almost has to take those big matches like she had in the Dubai semifinal and really try to push and focus on, certain aspect. I always loved aiming on targets. I used to visualize targets during my match, even when they weren't there. And that really helped me a lot as well. So, there's a lot of things that they can do, but, sometimes less is more, I think, especially in this situation. I think it's so many people, and we're talking about it now too, right? Like it's so many people talk about it. And
I know.
And so I think sometimes in her situation, less is more.
Moving on now to an update from Dubai. Of course, that tournament is done and dusted. But as we reported at the beginning of last week, the Dubai tournament director was not pleased with the number of withdrawals from his event, even suggesting that the WTA should start docking ranking points for players who withdraw from mandatory events, in addition to the 0-pointer that they get and the fine that they get for that. Well, it did not get better, Kim, for the Dubai tournament director, because the final tally, 16 players withdrew, 3 walkovers, and there were 4 retirements. So is it a coincidence that just this past week, the WTA announced a new Tour Architecture Council? And I'm going to read what their goal is. They want to develop meaningful improvements to the calendar, commitments, and other core elements of the tour framework. And Jess Pegula was announced as the leader of this new Council. So what are your immediate thoughts when you hear this?
Well, I think that's all great. I do feel like this has been something that's been talked about for a very long time. I was on the board of the WTA in the early 2000s, and that was an issue, calendar schedule, and that will always be an issue. To go back on the Dubai tournament, I do think the tournament ended really well. If you look at the semifinals that we had, and it felt like the Australian Open kind of semifinals where we had great 3-set matches and a great final with Jesse winning. So I do think the tournament director can be happy with how his tournament ended. Maybe not with how it started, but definitely with how it ended. But I do think it's great. The WTA is there for the players, and they want to make changes for the players. And I think in this situation, there have been many, many complaints. And I think it's good that the players can keep somewhat or have a say or have a little bit of control with where this might be going. So yeah, another interesting new topic that's come out that we want to keep our eye on and see when, especially because this is obviously not something that's going to happen overnight and changes like that. So interesting to see what will happen and how you can please as many as players as possible. You're not going to please everybody, but at least try to do as many as you can.
All right, moving on now, Kim, to I don't know if it was a headline, but I will tell you after this happened. So it was Carlos Alcaraz getting a little bit chippy with Maria Čičak in the chair during his quarterfinal match in Doha last week, and it lasted more than one changeover. There was just a talk going back and forth, maybe less from Maria Čičak, who is a woman of few words. At some point, at the end, she said, "Okay, I think we got the point."
But
which would have
the facial expressions are good.
I love Maria Čičak
Me too.
So much. In quick side note, I once had somebody come up to me at Indian Wells. And I often got asked, I still, when I'm an MC at a tournament, I often get asked, which court is so-and-so playing on? And I can usually show them the order of play. This person came up to me and was like, hey, any chance you know which matches Maria Čičak is the umpire for today? Yeah. Just full on Maria Čičak stands roaming the grounds at Indian Wells. So she's kind of like a cult figure in the sport of tennis. She's not taking it. And Alcaraz, listen, he was frustrated because he felt like he wasn't given enough time between points, or the clock was started and then stopped and shouldn't have been started again. It's a tale as old as time in tennis, right? But I think it made headlines because it's so rare that Carlos Alcaraz has anything negative to say. He's like Mr. Golden Retriever. And Kim, I don't want to stereotype here, but I feel like you were Miss Golden Retriever. And I'm just wondering, was there ever a time in your career where you felt like you not snapped, but where you were like, I can't hold it in. I'm annoyed, and I'm going to tell you that I'm annoyed?
There was a moment, but it wasn't on court. I mean, I definitely got frustrated, and I think I just kept it in more, and I tried to get the frustration out with my racket and the tennis ball, and maybe, just hit the ball a little harder, and that got a lot of that frustration out for me. But there was a moment years ago, and it was one of the first times that I played in Canada, and I played the night match and finished my match pretty late, and then I saw the schedule, after my match, after I won, and I saw that I was on first at 11 o'clock, and I was like, how is this possible? They always say that if you play last and you finish late, that they can't play you in the first round. I was like, listen, I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to go to the WTA office and kind of just, don't let this happen too often, because, maybe because I never complain, I don't want to say anything. And let me just go in there and just say that I don't agree with this, right? So I go there, get, all nice, brave and stuff. And it was Georgina Clark from Great Britain who was the supervisor at the time. And I go in there and I start saying, I'm like, Georgina, how is this possible that I'm playing this, early tomorrow morning, and it's finishing at 10:30 tonight? And she goes, Miss Clijsters, come here. And she takes me to her desk and she just shows me all the players that she had to schedule, all the matches that she had to schedule in, and the singles matches, the doubles matches. I was playing doubles, and she showed it to me, explained it, and I just walked out. Like I had nothing to say. Like there was nothing I could do. So then I said, like, okay, I'm not going to complain. You just go out and compete hard, and whatever gets put in front of you, you just deal with it. And that's kind of a little bit the mindset that I think kept. And I don't also want to spend energy on negative things, like, and focus too much on that. So yeah. But I love that Alcaraz actually is saying that stuff, because I think it does, for him to do it, it must really be frustrating, or something must be triggering, and it comes from a place then where he's actually very annoyed by it. So I enjoyed that he spoke up, and that maybe behind the scenes, where he mentioned the ATP rules, and maybe they'll change a little bit about the shot clock, because I agree. Like I think we saw something at the Australian Open with Novak in the semifinals in the fifth set, where he got a time violation after a super long rally. And it's, there's times like that where I feel like as a referee, you just have to be able, or a chair umpire, you have to just read the room a little bit as well. Because for me, as a tennis fan, when I'm watching this, you have to be able to give these players just their moment to just recover, and a little bit, whether it's 1 or 2 seconds more, is really not going to make a big deal.
Yeah, which is why I just think that this is going to continue to be an issue. And I didn't set this up particularly well, but he did get a time violation warning. And that is where the chippiness with Čičak stemmed from. And I on one hand, I agree, read the room. But on the flip side, reading the room is sort of what led us to have a serve clock in the first place, because chair umpires were potentially, according to other players, maybe partial in the way that they read the room. People for a long time contended that Nadal got preferential treatment in terms of reading the room. So on one hand, I'm like, okay, the serve clock is great because it takes out that subjective judgment. On the flip side, though, you're right. If there is a lung-busting point, in order for the player to then play a solid next point, they have to be able to potentially get the towel and breathe for a hot second. So
I'm just very curious, because you mentioned Rafa, and I don't think Rafa ever went over 25 seconds.
You don't?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, you don't think he ever got a time violation?
No, I'm sure he did. And some players use that too as a way, but I think in general, most of the time, like you stick to, your routines, I was a fast player in between points. Like I didn't even want to go and walk to the towel. I just used my wristband and wiped off the sweat. But I don't, I also don't think like they put the shot clock in, and I'm not saying they need to get rid of the shot clock. I think it's a good kind of guidance, but I think read the room when it is a very close moment, moment in a fifth set match like Novak had there, and if he's bouncing the ball, then just kind of let it run out. That's how I think. But anyway,
okay.
Who cares? I love how I think.
I care. But I love, it's an interesting debate. But
there's people that are like, once it's hit zero, if you haven't served, you're done. But to me, the ball, the bouncing of the ball is part of starting the point, I feel like.
Even if we're talking like Novak Djokovic, Marin Cilic level
not then.
Okay. But it's a fascinating argument. But shout out to the heavy sweaters out there who have to go to the towel. Right. I was a heavy sweater where it did not matter. Wristbands, my hands, I was a disaster. So I would have needed the towel. Rafa needed the towel.
Andy was a heavy sweater, wasn't he? Did he go to the towel a lot or?
Let's ask. We
should need to ask him. But back then we had like ball kits that we used to run with the towel to give us, the towel and
do you want to know my hot take on this topic, Kim?
Go for it.
The ball kids should still be bringing the towels.
I agree.
A ball kid who brought the towel and thought that was like the coolest part of my job.
Yeah. It was such great interaction too. Like I love that the kids, but I guess with COVID and all, they got rid of that. But I thought it was nice, and
I wrote a whole op-ed on it if anybody wants to look it up on tennis.com. But and granted, I believe they changed, what was it, maybe 2 summers ago, where they made it possible for the ball kid to bring the towel again. So there are certain tournaments that have that. I know at Dallas, they had the 2 boxes and you just got your towel from the box. I don't know if that's a decision made by the tournament, but I know that post-COVID, the option was made available for the ball kids to then bring the towel again. But anyway, we have derailed. I derailed us. But I love a hot take, and I feel like people got so fired up about ball kids bringing towels. Shout out John Wertheim, who vehemently disagrees with me here. I know he was like, this was child abuse that we were having kids do this in the first place. But I thought it was great. I actually interviewed several ball kids and ball people who were like, I was cool with it. It was like the time I got to interact with the player.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep.
All right. Moving on, unless you have anything else on
No, I don't.
Kids handling sweat and snot. Okay. This week in Austin, our friend Ajla Tomljanović has a first-round match against Venus Williams. And this was after we joked with her that if Serena comes back, she might not be the last person to beat Serena Williams after she beat her at the US Open in 2022. And what do you know, in Austin, we're recording this on a Tuesday. She plays today. So by the time you listen to this, we will know how that match ended. But what are the odds that she gets Venus in Austin?
It's so funny how things work out like that, right? And it's just, I think for her, just exciting to be back on court. And when you get to a certain age in your career and you've had some injuries and everything, you get to a point where your opponent really does not matter anymore, or not as much. It's not the priority. It's more focused about, how healthy do I feel? Am I ready to go? What do I want to focus on? And I think that's the mindset that she's going to be in, is like, I'm excited to be back out there. And she's had a taste for what life in the tennis world is like when she's not playing, and she's been commentating, and she's been a guest on our podcast. And so for her, like, she still wants to play tennis, and there's an excitement about that as well, to be back out there. And so I hope that she really enjoys her time on the court, and and play some good tennis and get off, whether she wins or loses. It's like having that feeling of like, yes, this is what I've missed. This is what I, wanted to kind of feel again and focus on. And this worked and this not, and kind of take that with her into the next round or into the next tournament.
Good stuff. Well, we will see how that all shakes out at the ATX Open. And shout out also to that team there, that social team. They do some great work. So go follow them, ATX Open. Kim, should we move on to Kimformation, my new favorite segment?
Yes, please. Let me give me some details about it. I don't even know. Like, what do you want me to?
I want Kimformation.
Okay,
obviously.
Let's go.
All right. So I want to start by having you tell us, obviously one of the storylines last week was Alex Eala and the massive crowds that she was bringing to Dubai, which is not a tournament that...
And everywhere else that she plays.
Yes, and everywhere else that she plays. I think it was perhaps maybe more notable there because that's not a tournament that is typically packed to the gills. And it was because the Filipino fans had come to watch their player. And I think Coco did such a great job on court saying, this is amazing. I know you're not here for me, but keep supporting your player, because this is a great way to get new eyeballs on tennis. But I would love to ask you about her actual tennis, because a year ago, hang on, I'm going to make sure I'm getting this right. She was ranked 137 in the world. And after this past week in Dubai, she's ranked 31. And she's obviously a lefty. I watched her in Miami last year, which was kind of her breakout tournament. And she just frustrated some incredible players there. And I'm wondering if you can tell us, in terms of her actual tennis, what is it that she does so well?
Well, there's a lot of things that she does really well. And I think there's a lot of things that make her make her opponents feel very uncomfortable. And she has, one of the things that she can't control is that she's a left-hander. And so there's always something about playing a left-hander that you get pulled out of the court a little bit differently. She can, with her forehand cross court, her forehand is really good, but I think her backhand is better. Her backhand is a little bit more of an aggressive shot, whereas the combination of her aggressive baseline shots with her backhand and then the ability to hit a heavier spin and make your opponents to kind of step back a little bit behind the baseline, being able to make the angle with her forehand and open up the court a lot of times to her opponent's backhand is something that a lot of players have a really hard time dealing with. And her footwork is really good. She has great stamina. She can play, we've seen her, was it Iga last year where she played a really good match, and she's starting to feel how old is she now? 19?
20, I believe.
20. Mm-hmm. She's still very young, but we see the mental growth as well. Having that support, like we talk about that, but at times, and we saw it this year after the Australian Open where Rafa was, spoke out about, being a little bit of a protector for her as well, because when she lost to Alicia Parks at the Australian Open in a close 3-setter, she also got a lot of hate from her fans and from the Philippine world and the fans that support her from her home country. And so, there's a lot of new things that she's dealing with at such a young age as well. And she's been in Spain for many years, since I think she was 13 years old. I think she moved to Spain and trained at Rafa's academy and has been, around people with a mindset that demands a lot, but is also very focused on, you have to put in the work, you're respectful, you are, and she's been around that environment. And I think there's no coincidence that she has the results that she has. But I think it's going to be very important for her to be a little bit protected from the craziness that comes with that all as well, and just the ability to keep focusing on what she has to do. And again, like when it comes down to the on-court stuff, she reminds me a little bit of a like she has that kind of pit bull. Like I remember Sibylkova was a little bit like that to me as well. Like they have such quick feet, but the ability to, from a defensive situation, still move into the court and become an aggressive player is a very tough combination to handle on the other side of the net. So very interesting. Has done great things so far at a young age, but still has some improvements to get to, and the consistency is something that is going to be very important. A lot of players know her now, know her strengths, know her weaknesses. So that's something that she's going to have to deal with as well, is to make sure that she can make her strengths become even stronger, but work on some of the weaknesses and deal with this life of being Michael Jordan in the Philippines. And it's not, as people just think it's online and it's in the news and everything, but it's not easy to, I think, to deal with changes like that so quickly.
And I wanted to follow up on this, Kim, because during the Australian Open, we asked fans for questions, and we were still sort of getting our feet under us as a podcast, getting our routine set up. We did not answer all of those questions, but one of the questions I thought fit in perfectly here. It was from one of our listeners named Lachlan. And the question was, does the crowd supporting you or your opponent have any effect on how you're feeling on court during a match? Do you actually take notice of what might be happening with the crowd, or are you just laser focused? And I know that you certainly played in situations where you had the crowd that was, full on Kim Clijsters support. I'm wondering what that was like. As Lachlan asked, do you feel it? Does it add pressure? Can you explain that feeling?
Yeah, definitely. There is definitely moments or matches where I'm so locked in that basically it felt like I walked into the stadium and I walked out without really absorbing much that was going on. But then there were matches where I felt like I needed, or I would feed off somebody, especially at the US Open, where the crowd is probably the loudest if you get to play a night session at the US Open. And the people who are sitting on the lower side, like they're right there basically, and you make eye contact with them. You can hear them. You can, when they yell and they say things to you, they're like, oh, come on, go for an ace. And then you hit an ace, and I'm like looking at them. Like there's little things like that make you connect with the crowd. I felt like I had support also if I got the crowd into the matches, if I was defending well, if I would do a split or would retrieve a ball and then would run for a drop shot. Like people love kind of that effort and the, to go all out kind of mindset. And I've been able to use that kind of energy as well to play better in important moments. And so I definitely loved, it's not that it happens all the time, but I definitely love playing those matches, especially at the US Open on center court. Those night matches have been, were great. And I loved it. And it just gives you energy sometimes when you feel a little flat or, you're not fully focused. And it's just sometimes nice to kind of have that interaction with somebody that makes you forget the score for a second, or that you're serving for the match or whatever. Like, it's just really nice to be able to, be a little bit distracted in between the points, but then be fully focused again once you step out onto the baseline.
Did it ever add pressure? Because I personally would be thinking, I do not want to disappoint this stadium of people.
No, I did not.
No?
No.
Gosh, that's why you're a champion, Kim, and I am a podcaster.
No, but I did, where I did feel pressure was for my teammates, like the people on my team, like my trainer, because I knew that he was leaving his family to make me a better tennis player. My coaches, like I wanted it, for them just as much as I wanted it for myself. And if I lost, like I felt more disappointed for them as well. And it's a different story if you play, in my time, the Fed Cup, Billie Jean King Cup now, like if you lose a match for your country and you do take that a little bit more to heart when you're playing, in my case, I was playing for Belgium, and that does hurt a little bit more, I think, than, you're playing a tournament around the world and you're losing, for yourself. But it's, I think the Fed Cup, the Billie Jean King Cups, and then losing for my teammates, especially big matches, were for me the hardest for them.
All right, our last bit of Kim-formation. I would love your thoughts on Jess Pegula, who, of course, won her 4th WTA 1000 title in Dubai last week. It is also on this day that we are recording her birthday, so happy birthday, Jessie. She's turning 33. I think I confused myself because is she 30? Yeah, there you go. 32, turning 33. But one of the most impressive stats is that she has won 9 of her 10 career titles in the last 3.5 years, which makes my head explode because she really is the definition of a late bloomer. I chuckle after. So she said in Riyadh last fall that she thinks it's funny how people talk about her tennis IQ. That's like one of the things that people always talk about when they reference her game. And she said, honestly, for the first 8 years of my career, I was dumb on the tennis court. I had no idea what I was doing. So I think it's so funny that is something that people focus on when they talk about my game. But you've had a chance to hit with her. You've obviously watched a lot of her tennis. So again, from a tennis perspective, tell us what makes her so good.
The first time I watched Jessie play was in World Team Tennis in West Virginia. It was 2018. We were all in West Virginia. I think the event took 4 weeks. It was a really long time. We were all quarantined together, but I watched Jessie in one of her matches, and I think she had just come back or she was coming back from a hip injury, hip surgery, maybe even that she had, and I hadn't heard from her, so I watched her play, and I was like, man, she hits the ball so clean. I love how she stays on, almost on top of the baseline, doesn't let anybody push her back, and so that was kind of my first kind of feeling or opinion about Jessie and loved her. I spoke to David, who was her coach at the time, and was just asking questions where's she, what's happened, how did she come out of nowhere? She should be in the top 30 when she plays like this, right? Listen, they were only 1-set matches at World Team Tennis, but she made an impact on me, and I loved watching her play. And then just seeing how she's still doing the same things as she did back then, but she's doing them even better. And she's and I don't mean this in any disrespectful way, but I practiced with her in Chicago, and I came off the court and I'm like, man, it feels like, that video game? It's called Arkanoid. Do you know that one where you have the little bar and the ball and the wall keeps going down and you have to break as many of those?
Yes.
That's what it's like playing Jess Pegula. Jess Pegula is that wall that keeps coming down, and you feel like, oh, I can't hit it harder. I can't hit faster. I can't break through this. And that's a little bit what it's like. I feel like when you play Jessie, it's not like she has the heaviest spin. She plays the ball pretty flat. It's a lot of time the same pace, but she doesn't miss. She takes a lot of time away from you because she stays on top of the baseline. She's so good at moving from left to right. But in the last, and I feel since that she's been working with Mark Knowles, even in her final against Svitolina, more drop shots she's putting in. Her serve is getting better. She's hitting faster. The accuracy of her serve is getting, even more. The placement is better. So, yeah, she is such a tough player for a lot of people. And as, if you want to talk about the Sabalenkas and the Igas and Rybakina, to be able to beat somebody like her, they have to play their best tennis. Because from the moment that they drop to 80%, 85%, Jessie is there and she'll take her chances and will break you down. And that's what, why she's so tough to beat. And I think last year she won, I think for a long time, I think most of her wins were on hard court. But then last year she won, she was the only player to win 3 tournaments on different surfaces, on the green clay in Charleston, on grass in was it Hamburg?
I'm not positive.
Yeah, she won a grass court tournament and then a hard court. So really, that type of game, it's so consistent, but her consistency is just getting better and higher, and because the intensity is being built up. She's physically getting stronger, moving even better. So I love watching her play because I think about the video game too.
I love that you said no disrespect. If somebody compared my tennis game to a video game, I would think that was the ultimate compliment.
But that's the feeling that you get when you play somebody like her who doesn't give you anything for free and you feel rushed. She makes you feel rushed. She makes you take risks that you don't usually take. And that's why you start making mistakes and why you start make errors. And I think the fact that she has such a good head on her shoulders also helps her, in tough moments and to stay calm through it all. And she has good people around her all the time, and which is great. And I like her. She has great interest off court as well. So she's, to me, very, very interesting, and not your typical, tennis player that you expect, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned her off-court interest. She's got her Ready 24 skincare. My girls and I just got a box from Ready 24. We love her product. Great. She also has her Lending Paw charity, which has been doing really cool things. She, of course, has the Players Box podcast. Did you happen to see Chen Wen make a guest appearance
on the Dubai tasting? Yeah, I did see that.
On the snack hall, where because you know about Jessie's nickname in China, right? Dafu, which means big rich.
Oh, no way. I did not know that. Oh my God.
So everybody sort of at this point knows that her nickname is Dafu in China. and Chen Wen was so funny. She's like, everybody in China wonders why she's not somewhere living the high life. And, instead she's playing a really difficult sport. It was really funny. But again, the fact that we can all laugh about that is something she's been really honest about, her background and how that affected her mindset in the sport of tennis. Anyway, just a great player and somebody that I enjoy being around. And shout out Jess Pegula. Jessie for president.
Yes. Humble, nice, caring. That's the champions we need.
There you go. All right, Kim, let's finish with our Rec Room segment. We have some recommendations for you this week, guys. I'm really excited about it.
All right. Mine is what to me is a very practical thing that I use a lot and that we have used a lot on the WTA Tour in the physio room is the heat patches. Listen, I shoveled snow yesterday at our house, at my parents-in-law's house. Let me tell you, at night, my lower back. So I open one of these. I stick it onto my lower back or my neck. I take these on the plane because it does get cold sometimes on the plane, and I hate having my back or my neck cold. And I wear these, and they're incredible. This one is from Walgreens. There's a lot of different ones, different sizes, and this one is for lower back, but they have them for the neck. And I always carry a few with me in my carry-on, and even when I take the kids to basketball tournaments, I'll just if we sit in the car or. Yeah, it's just easy to have with you, and it keeps everybody warm. So this is one of my favorites.
I love that. Next week when we record, qualifying for Indian Wells will be going on. When we release, it will be day 1 of main draw play at Indian Wells. And if you know me, you know that I have I'm helping out a t-shirt company based in Australia. I got to know them through last year's Australian Open when they had these awesome match day shirts. So they have the order of play on the back for whichever day of the tournament you go. So if you go on day 3, they have the order of play on the back of the shirt for the top
like a
5 or 6 courts.
Tour or
exactly.
Great.
It's like Kim. Yes, it's like a concert tee, but for tennis. And
what a great idea!
You don't even need the order of play. And granted, in the early rounds, are there more than 6 courts in action? Yes, there are. But how cool to be able to buy a t-shirt in the morning and have the schedule for the top courts on your back. Or if you happen, it's so often at Indian Wells where you hear just like deafening roars coming from court 5 because there was a surprise tie break in the 3rd in a match that nobody saw coming, but the stands are packed. And you can say, hey, I watched this incredible match and it was the best match I've ever seen in my life. And you have a little memento
and imagine
that
getting
match.
That shirt signed by the player. Like
even better, Kim.
Yes.
So I, again, got involved with this company in Australia, and we're waiting for final approvals. But as of this moment, it looks like we are going to be in the Indian Wells store as well. So if you're going to Indian Wells, go check it out. Get your match day shirt. We also have match day totes. And then send us pictures.
Great idea.
Well, I can't take credit for the idea, but I can take credit for the fact that I thought it was great and told anyone who would listen.
So what's the company or the brand called?
Yeah, the brand is Badge of Honor.
Oh,
and
nice.
Again, based in Sydney, and they've done some really great work. They're doing FIFA stuff this year, so shout out Badge of Honor. And if you're on the ground in Indian Wells, keep an eye out. Again, I'll let you know when we get all the confirmations, but as of this moment, it looks like we'll be in the store there. So
all right,
there you go.
Good stuff.
Anything else,
Indian
Kim?
Wells.
I know.
It was always my favorite, like that favorite part. I always loved the first part until I think I got to the clay courts, but that first part of the tennis season, being in Australia, leaving Europe, in the middle of the winter and playing there. And then at times I also played in Antwerp right after the Australian Open. And then Indian Wells, Miami were, that was one of my favorite trips. So might be in Miami for a few days actually. So I'm excited to, go to a few qualifying matches.
We're both going to be there, Kim.
All right, exciting.
Our first in-person meeting as co-hosts of Love All. That's
good.
Pretty cool. Yep. Breaking news here at the end of the show for those of you who are still with us.
I hope everybody stayed. All right.
Obviously, surely everyone is listening to
everybody
the very
wants
last
to see what the recommendations are.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, on that note, Kim, this has been an absolute delight. Thank you to all of you for joining us for another episode of Love All. We will see you with new episodes every Wednesday. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on all of our socials at Love All Podcast. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.